I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to just chat.
So am I, and thank you for like coming on here with me and doing this. I'm really excited to. We both have a similar interest, but yet it kind of there's a common one, but yet we both walk in different directions with it. And I just think it's so interesting to be able to get together and have these conversations about such an important subject of confidence for women.
I love that. And thank you so much for having me. It truly is just nice and a breath of fresh air to be able to talk about empowering women and for us to continue to lift each other up instead of this demeanor of, you know what I mean? Each woman for themselves. It's really nice to have that feeling of collaboration and the empowerment on both sides.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think it's such an important thing. Like there's so much competition, it seems like, between women, and sometimes it even gets a little bit like natty sometimes. I'm like, no, like let's rather lift each other up and build each other.
Yep. It's so, so important. So I absolutely love that. And I'm really excited.
Yeah, so am I. I think it's beautiful when people can come together and collaborate and yeah, and like you say, build each other up on it. And we get to like have this conversation, and hopefully others can benefit from just like, how did you find your way into the confidence journey even, right? Like, and just, I find that our stories are so impactful. Like to hear your story and the journey that you've walked to get to where you are today can just, your messy can actually help someone else's story.
I absolutely love that because we're all on the same journey, right? We all want the same things, the happiness, the confidence, and it looks different for all of us. But at the end of the day, it's all the same journey. So why not be the light at the end of the tunnel for somebody else, right? They're just different steps along the way.
Yeah, 100% agree with you on that.
I love that.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about you, where you're from, and where, yeah, what got you started on this journey? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm from upstate New York, like super small town, in the middle of the mountains, really cool, really cold. Um, but I pretty much got into health coaching just from a place of discovering that I wanted more for myself, right? I focus on women not ditching the diets, right? I focus on them ditching the diets, not having to feel their self-worth exists in a number and a size in their pants, a number on the scale, right? It's really focusing on themselves and that it all gets to come from within. But I access that from the point of health because it is something that we struggle with our bodies, right? So how can we access and how can we release and take back our power from the diet industry and just feel in control around food, with our bodies, in our lives, and things like that. So, how I got started was that exact thing, right? I was going through that. I was constantly trying new diets, programs, fads, and really trying to find where I fit in, always wanting to shift and change my body, my size, feeling like I never really was worthy of anything, right? Unless I looked a certain way. So, that's how I got started. And I knew after trying a bunch of different things and still being really unhappy. And I knew that I wanted something else. So how could I just try and find what worked for me in a way that felt aligned and felt good? And that's exactly what I created. And now I continue to help women do the same exact thing.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's so important. I do agree with you. Like the dieting thing can be so overwhelming and be discouraging. It's almost becomes a negative thing.
Exactly. And we just end up blaming ourselves and our bodies for things that weren't meant to work in the first place, right? They're all based on deprivation and we crave pleasure. So how can we exist in a world that is based on deprivation and doesn't provide us with any pleasure?
Yeah,
So
like can I still have that chocolate bar?
exactly, right? And do it guilt-free and enjoy it. We're like, yeah. So it just is pretty wild. And it's exciting to see. It just is hard for I think a lot of women to feel like that is available to them and that is possible, right? We live in
Hmm.
this place where it isn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's so important. Like I love what you're doing with that, because so often like a huge thing for so many women is body image. and just how can we love our bodies, and even if there is a few wrinkles and a few stretch marks or rolls or whatever it is, right?
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. I love that. So, how did you get into the business? How did you create your business? How did you get into this life?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Yeah, you know what? For me, I lacked so much confidence. I grew up in a very, very religious organization. Women didn't really have a voice. Um, Something I haven't told a lot of people, but I'm starting to say it more often now, is I grew up, I didn't actually even know how to dress properly. I had a black cap on my head. For younger years, I had to always wear my hair braided. I wore homemade, home sewn dresses all the time. And again, back to like women didn't have a voice. So when I came to a place of realizing that, for me, it was a faith journey where I realized, hey, I want relationship with God. And I was following a lot of rules, which didn't align. And I'd always felt there was something more in my life. So I ended up walking away from that organization. And at that point in my life, I had no idea how to dress. I had no idea how to do my hair. I had never worn makeup. And here was a mom of 4 boys trying to figure this stuff out. I was like a teenager trying to figure it out in my 30s.
Wow.
No confidence whatsoever. And I remember even as a young girl, I was so ashamed of how I looked. I would walk among aisles and like I'd go to Zellers back then when we had Zellers. I'd go to Zellers with my mom and instead of walking down the aisle, I'd walk through the clothes racks hiding. And that became my story, is just I hid every part of me. So confidence, none of it. Self-esteem at the bottom. And when I came to the place of, like I stood one day in my kitchen, I was like, who am I? And I started on that journey to like, I need to find this out. And I realized that, I can get that confidence and I can just embrace my story and embrace who I am. And it became quite an interesting journey. But in that journey, I realized I wasn't the only one struggling with that. I could see so many other women struggling with self-esteem and their confidence, and it didn't matter what walk of life they came from. There was a lack of confidence in who they were as a woman and just embracing their essence. So that's how I got into the counseling and the coaching. And I just really, as I came more into accepting me, I wanted to be able to offer that to other women.
I love that. I absolutely love that. That story is beautiful. And it's so it's so amazing how women can that's how we feel in every area of our life, is just the hiding, right? Just wanting to be like whatever it is that we think we're supposed to be or what we think is expected of us. And it isn't, there are no expectations, right? Like at the end of the day, we get to create them, we get to write the rules. And I think that's so lost in translation, is we're expected to be one thing after another, right?
Oh, totally. We're expected, and there's this expectation that we feel the world has put on us.
Mhm.
But I do wonder, like, I just have to wonder, like, what would it be like if every woman and man too, but every woman, because that's kind of where we're both, what walk we walk is
Mhm.
for women, if we all put that mask of pretense down, came out of hiding, and just lived our lives as we are, like embraced our messy, embraced our stories, and lived who we are.
Yep.
Can you imagine what that would be like if we all did?
Yeah. Seriously. And I think I always tell my clients, like, imagine, um, it's weird because think about, I explain this to them, but think about when you're in a room with somebody who's like confident and shining and glowing, we kind of like are triggered by that, right? We're triggered by that and like, why can't I have that? But then we go about it in a way like, oh, we call her names or we like think down about her, right? And it's so crazy to just think that this is what you get to have. And it's crazy that it triggers us because we want it so badly. We just don't know how to get there.
You're so right on that. And I'm glad that you pointed that out, that like if there's someone that is glowing and they are walking and just embracing who they are, that there is often a bit of a judgment for them. It's like, oh, who do you think you are?
Yes, it's so, It's not funny, but it's just like, it's really sad because that is what it's like, the faux pas, right? Is to be confident. It's like everybody
Yeah.
wants it, but we're really afraid and we don't know how to get it.
Yeah, exactly. And so then in order to make ourselves feel a little bit better in our insecurities, we call someone else and want them to come down to where we are. Like, hey, you can't have that confidence. Just come down and be with me here in my insecurities.
Yes, yes. So it just is amazing to be in a place where we get to empower each other. And like, this is the new normal, is to be confident, to be happy, and to live life however you want, right? It can look different. Our definitions of success are different. Our definitions of happiness are different, right? Like whatever that is, we get to create our own metrics on what it looks like and how we want to achieve it. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a big part of getting there too, though, is, and I like that, I mean, for both of us, I think it's for so many women out there that we hide our backstory. We hide where we came from.
Mhm.
I know I did for so many years, but for both of us here, like our backstories is actually what's inspired us and is going, hey, actually, my story and what I walked through can now help other people.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what you're doing with your story is you've taken that and says, actually, instead of hiding that, I'm going to become a coach and help other
Yep.
women walk this out.
Yep. And embracing it with both arms instead of this part of us that we want to push to the side and think that it is a bad part of us, right? We
Yeah.
actually get to love every piece, every journey, every stepping stone that we've been on because it's gotten us to where we are. And I think at the end of the day, we have two choices, right? We can blame what it is that's happened to us in the past, or we can embrace it full heartedly and know that I am on the right journey, whatever that looks like, whatever that may be. I get to choose, and every single day I get to choose again what it is that I
Love
want.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Love that. I like that you brought that choice part up because it is choosing. And my mentor wrote a book and she talked about that in her book of how for her it was joy. So she'd gone through some really tough times in life. She actually lost two husbands. Uh,
Wow.
both of them had heart attacks. And
Wow.
she writes her story in her book now called Fresh Joy. And I was just so inspired by the one piece that she says in there that every morning we get up and we choose what shirt we're going to put on. We choose our pants, which right now is stretch pants for most of us as we sit at home. We choose what earrings we're going to put on or what necklace we're going to wear. And she says we actually get to choose whether we put joy on. And so I'll take that a step further and I'll go like, actually, I get to choose if I'm going to embrace me today. I'm going to choose if I'm going to take on confidence or if I'm going to take on insecurity and walk through my day with that.
Yes, I love that so much because at the end of the day, we are in control of our actions, our thoughts, and our emotions, right? So when we're chasing this happiness, this confidence, it doesn't have to exist when you get to a certain pant size. It doesn't have to exist when you get to a certain waist or
Mhm.
weight, right? It gets to exist right now by you choosing to embrace everything that it is that's yours.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And to be conscious of the fact too that I read something recently and in there they were talking about how so losing my train of thought just a little bit here, but we can want to be so even like taking that girl that we talked about now,
Yep.
she's up there in the room, she's glowing, she's got this
Yep.
confidence and she's bubbly and all that. And so we go, I want that. But what if your personality is a little bit more introverted,
Right.
right? But can you embrace that introversion?
Yep.
Can you embrace that part of you and know that you actually might not ever be that girl that is just like loud and bold because you're a little bit quieter,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean that you're any less of a person
Yes.
because some
Yes.
people just their natures are just a little bit quieter than the next person. That's nothing wrong.
Hmm.
It's just who you are and embracing that. And I think it goes that way for the body too, that some people are bigger boned. You can't maybe necessarily lose as much weight as the next person.
Yep. Yep. And yeah, I think that's beautiful. And it is so important that, and knowing the choice to be and do whatever it is that you want to do and have and be, right?
Such a good point. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I
You
love
get to create your, yeah, you get to write your story.
that. And you get to take everything you've learned in the past, every misstep, everything that we might call a failure, right? Everything is a lesson. And the next day you get to choose whatever it is that you want, right? It can look 180 degrees different from the day before, or it can be the same exact thing. But the choice is yours. And I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing, is so empowering to know that we get to be in control. And it's sometimes the scariest piece, right? It's the scariest piece because it's easy to hide behind and be like, oh, well, I can't control this. But at the end of the day, we kind of can.
Yeah, you kind of can.
Mm.
So that brings me to this point. A question for you. So for people that, as far as health goes, for some people that have struggled with health issues, some of that stuff it's harder to control, right? Like if you have, I'm going to use Lyme disease for an example, because that one actually took me out, and I have family members that are struggling with that now. And I know that when you're struggling with that, it's hard to exercise. It's hard to stay motivated. Your body just is tired. Or for someone else, maybe someone's on bed rest because they're having a pregnancy that's a little bit troubled, and they're said, oh, you better, the doctor says you better stay on your bed for the next 6 months. Well, they're not getting out there to exercise and to help their bodies feel good by getting that exercise. What do you recommend then? Because that's not in your control as much, but what
Yes.
is?
So I think one of the big things is we have this mentality of losing weight, being healthy, and the only things we really take into place are food and movement, right? We have to have more movement than we do food in order to be in a caloric deficit, and that's how we lose weight, right? Is like that, we input, output, etc. So the biggest thing too is those are only the smallest pieces of the puzzle. And I think that is the hardest part to grasp, is that what we've been taught obviously hasn't worked. Otherwise, like I know for my followers, is they wouldn't be following me, and my clients wouldn't be working with me if what they've done has worked, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's looking at every piece of the puzzle, and one, knowing like, okay, this is what my body needs right now, and this is what I get to give it, and that's okay, right? It's enjoying as much as the process as you possibly can, and knowing that it's perfectly okay. And just if you have even a month, 2 months, even 6 months where your movement isn't the way it used to be, that's okay, right? It doesn't have to be this pressure that you put on yourself of like, well, I have to get, because that's what we do, right? We're like, well, I have to get this amount of movement. That's the only way I'm going to maintain my weight. That's the only way I'm going to sustain it. But it's not. When you are at a place, it is really easy, no matter what's going on in your life, for it to be maintained, because you're not just looking at it as input and output. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
very much healthy living, the way you think, right? So if you're constantly like, oh, well, because I'm not moving, I'm going to gain weight, I'm going to gain weight, I'm going to gain weight, guess what's going to show up in your reality, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
just really discovering all of the pieces to the puzzle, the mindset. Yes, water, food, movement are there, but you get to just listen to your body and allow it to tell you what it wants, when it wants it. And that's perfectly okay, right? Maybe this is the season that you're in, is a little bit of rest and reset, a little bit of healing, and that's perfectly okay. This season will soon pass too.
Mm-hmm. I really like that you say that. And I like that you brought those words up, like the rest and the reset, which is actually what, when I was in the middle of really, really resisting the fact that I couldn't do some of the things that I really had wanted to do, I had a coach look at me one day and she's like, can you embrace this as a gift? Instead of looking at it as a bad thing, can you embrace, you've been so busy raising children for so many years of your life. Because you actually have an opportunity and a gift to rest. You get to reset your body right now and your mindset, and it's a gift. And I was like, well, that's definitely a different reframe. And it took me a bit to get there, but it was important.
It's so important. And we put so much pressure on the food and the movement for losing weight, but it is like the smallest piece of the puzzle. And I think that's the hardest thing to grasp, because we've been taught the complete opposite, right? So I rewrite like years of reframing with my clients. It's like, it's okay that this is the way you've thought, but this is what you get to have now, right? And it gets to be easy and it gets to feel really freaking good. And that is, what more do you want, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really exciting. And, but just allowing yourself to be wherever it is that you're meant to be is exactly where you're meant to be.
Mhm.
So I love that.
I like that. That's really good.
Yep. I love that.
I have another question that I wanted to ask you. So you say on your Facebook page, helping women ditch dieting, I'm reading off of it here, and heal their relationship with food. So, what exactly in even that? Because I found those words really inspiring, actually. So, what inspired you for that exactly?
Yeah. So I tried even like starting back in grade school, I like high school, I remember wanting my butt to be smaller and my thighs to be slimmer, right? It was always something that I focused on. And I focused on this weight of 118 pounds. And that is where I wanted to go. And that's what I thought was going to give me everything that I wanted, right? The confidence, the happiness, the boys, the love, the deserving, the worthiness. And that is what I thought would happen. And I got there and it didn't happen. Right? I felt emptier at that weight than I did 20 pounds ago. And it just was such a place where I was like, I worked so hard to get here. I deprived myself of food every single day. I wasn't eating enough. You know what I mean? I was exercising like crazy and I felt emptier than ever before. And so then I was like, okay, well, what am I really searching for? That's still what I'm searching for. Maybe I need to lose more weight, right? Maybe I need to go further. Maybe I need to continue doing it. So I continued on that path for a while. And then I went to the other side of the spectrum where I was like, screw it. I don't even care. I'm just going to eat and do and party whatever I want. Right. And
Mm.
then there was trying to find that balance and what that looked like. So then I ended up on the other side of the spectrum and I was like, okay, I really want to lose weight. I really want to feel healthy. I want to feel good in my own skin. What does that mean? So then I found it very challenging to lose weight because I was trying all of these things and then I would fail because it wasn't fun. And then I would cycle back around, right? And then I would go on, renew my commitment for 2 weeks, do it again, fall off, binge, and say, screw this. So then I started selling diet products as an MLM, which is a huge piece of my story. And I was trying to give women the same happiness and confidence that I wanted, right? But I wasn't sure how I was going to reach it. And thought this would be the answer. And so I wanted to help everybody else. And then obviously that fell apart and didn't work. So the biggest thing that I wanted was to show women that they were in control because we give our power away to the diet industry, to the products, to the fads, right? And a lot of times we just end up, I see this with a lot of people, we just end up kind of throwing money at it, hoping that it's going to work without actually like diving into why it is that we want to lose weight, why it is that we haven't achieved success, and what's kind of going on deeper below the surface. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, 100%. I love that.
Yeah. So it's really just I hate to say that we're a lazy society, but we want instant results, right? And we are really just so programmed to like think that when we patch something up that it's going to get fixed, right? Because we're not used to dealing with our feelings, our emotions. And the same thing happens with our health is that we just think like, oh, well, I'll take this one thing and it's just going to work, or I'm going to just put money into a membership site and it's just going to work, right? So that is the biggest thing that I was like, this diet industry is based on us failing. It's based on us thinking that our bodies are wrong or that we're doing something wrong and that it's not
Wow.
available to us. And that is what I want to rewrite is I want to have women help them take their power back so that they get to be in control. And then how we do one thing is how we do everything. So we take back our control in our health. Guess what? It comes in our career, our finances, our relationships, and it just is so much more. You just get to live the most fulfilled life because you're in control of everything.
Yeah. You live in a place of wholeness all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah. And all you did was shift one thing and it shifted everything else.
Absolutely love that. And thank you for sharing that part, which is what caught my attention too, is like that started back in school for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I am noticing too, the more women I talk to, like I'm in my late 20s, right? I have women who I talk to who are in their 30s. I work with women up to in their 60s, but a lot of the women who are in their 30s are telling me that they've been on a diet for half their life. And it's so sad because we do spend this, there's a statistic that women spend an average of 17 years of their life on a diet. Right?
Wow.
So it's searching for the confidence, searching for the happiness, and then never getting it or
Mhm.
what they think they want, right? They think it exists in the weight and the size, etc. And then continuing to search for years and years and years. And then, yeah, isn't that wild?
That is very wild. 17
17.
years.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
incredible in a not very good way.
Exactly. No. And I'm even thinking about like my story. It was probably 8 or 9 years. And that's, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So if we take until we're 14 and then we add 8 or 9 years, it's not, it's kind of crazy. So it's really sad. And it just is, it's such a big industry that
Mhm.
is just based on the wrong principles.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So diving deep, digging in, finding out what the root of that is.
Mhm.
Because
Yep.
it's not just about the number on the scale.
Yes. It's never about the number on the scale.
Exactly. Or the rankings or the
Mhm.
whatever it is that you're unsatisfied with.
Mhm.
And I guess I find it so sad that it starts at such a young age. And what is it that creates that in, I mean, it's society, right? It's movies, it's so much access to be slim and trim, right?
And thinking about what's expected of us, right? As women, we take on all the hats, we take on all the roles, we
Yeah.
take on mom, we take on now it's like booming that women are entrepreneurs, right? Mom, entrepreneur, housewife, like all of these things, homemaker, like all of these roles that we feel expected. And for some reason, we feel we have to be Wonder Woman at everything that we do. So then
Mhm.
the first thing to go is your self-care because you can't because everybody else comes before us, right? And
Totally.
basic self-care for my clients is water, food, and movement. And like that's what I tell them. Like these are the basics that we are going back to, and then everything else will add on. And when
Mhm.
they start just those three basic things and they start adding them in a way that feels aligned, it's insane. You tap into all of the boundless reserves of energy. You get to decrease stress. It's just really amazing the smallest shifts that we can make, but it's allowing yourself to choose yourself first and know that it isn't selfish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And to prioritize self-care.
Yes. Yes. And that it just because you're choosing yourself doesn't mean you're sacrificing anything.
No, and actually it's quite the opposite, right? It's
Right.
when you choose to do that self-care and take care of you, you have more to give to someone else. When
Yes.
I'm running out of an empty tank, which sometimes that happens,
Mhm.
nothing left to give to anyone else. And what I do try to give is often kind of bumbled. But if I
Yes.
take a step back and say, wait, I need to take care of me, I have so much more to give.
Exactly. And we do, it just ends up being the stressed, exhausted, frustrated version of ourselves that we're giving to everybody. And as soon as you make that switch it's really cool too, because when you make that switch and you start to honor yourself in a way that you maybe never have in the past, if you're surrounded by loved ones and things like that, they all start to mimic that back to you. And I think that is the most amazing lesson is that then the way that you're treating yourself is now how everybody else starts to treat you.
Yeah,
It's really cool.
it is. It's that saying, teach people how to treat you too,
Yep.
right?
Yep. And the only way is how can you expect to be treated with love and kindness if you aren't willing to do it to yourself too, right? It's like the same thing with the thoughts. There are things that we say to ourselves that we would never say to our best friend or the people around us ever,
Ever.
ever, right? So why are we so willing to say them to ourselves?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's a really big one. Like, would you say what you're saying to yourself to your friend? Or if your friend said that to you, what you're saying to
Ouch.
yourself, would you keep them as a friend? Yeah, probably not. I'd be like,
Mhm.
yeah, I think we'll put some distance here. There's a boundary here now.
Yeah. Isn't that, ugh, it makes me so sad. Just the
It's
way It's just all the things that we think are wrong with us, right? And where does that stem from?
Yeah. Well, and that brings me to this question. So again, back to that high school girl
Oh yeah.
or middle school girl. For any of our listeners right now that maybe have younger daughters in school, because it begins way back here, right? It begins in childhood and teen years. To the parents that might be listening that have those young children, or to the our listeners that are in school in those years now, what would you say to them? Like, what advice, what message would you give them?
Honestly, oh my gosh, so many things.
I know, right? Like that, there's just 101 things here that I can think of right now.
So I'm like, okay, what ones are the best? What ones do I choose first? I think the biggest thing that's standing out to me is to normalize the way we look and act around food and know that it's okay, whatever the relationship looks like, and to
Mhm.
normalize conversations about happiness and confidence in our bodies, right? The biggest thing I think that is what I see in my clients is that food was never talked about. Like it just was something that kind of happened. And then it would be kind of the only craving or the only, right? We get cravings for food, salt, sweet, whatever. It's the only solution we have come up with this far. So really being aware of the emotions that are going on and being an open ear, right? Because it's never really about the food. It's never really about the cookie. It's never really about the weight. It's about something deeper. So,
Yeah.
how can you create these wholesome relationships that are just like maybe, you know what I mean? Just sitting and talking and having conversations and listening. And I think that's the biggest thing is that um and just allowing feelings and emotions to be whatever they are, right? Because we have been taught for so long that we can't feel our emotions, we have to hide them, hide behind closed doors, up in our bedroom, right? Nobody wants to hear. And that's the biggest thing is how can you make these conversations about emotions and things that we're feeling
Yeah.
regularly? And then also to whatever relationship, if you are a parent with kids at home, your relationship with food and the scale, unfortunately, will be passed down. It is not your fault, but how can you start to just make even your daughters or your kids aware of maybe even thoughts that you're thinking, like, hey, I think things like this too, and it's okay, right? But let's shift and change. How can I help you gain more confidence and happiness every single day? Does that make sense? So just
Absolutely.
normalizing, yeah, just normalizing the conversations and how you can be as open as you want your kids to be. How can you be as open to them about things like that, right? Because it's all about relatability, I think.
Yeah.
And it's about feeling like you're talking to somebody who's walked the walk that you want to walk or is doing the things or has been where you are. Otherwise, you feel, and I think that is why people get drawn to coaches is you're like, oh my gosh, this person's been where I've been, right? So I want to feel this energy. So doing the same thing with kids and family and just allowing the conversations to come up, I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah. No, that's a big one.
Yeah.
And I think for girls, women, young girls, and then growing into womanhood is you're beautiful just the way you are. And you might look at your imperfections and your flaws and all of that, but your uniqueness, like it has so much to offer the world. And I often think too, like when we try and hide who we are, that part of us and that inner stuff that we're going, oh, I'll just hide this and hold this back. Actually, the world is missing out.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's honoring your voice and saying whatever it is that you
Mhm.
want to say, doing whatever it is that you want to do, and knowing always that it never needs any justification when you're doing and talking about things that you love.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So just to be open and honest, the more conversations we can have about weight, about food, and even sex, right? It's another taboo topic that we never talk about. So
Right.
yeah, as much as we can just make this normal and allow it to just be whatever it is meant to be, and then from there go for it, because it's the feelings that are driving the things that we're doing.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a very it's a taboo subject that just doesn't get talked about enough, is how we feel about our bodies, how we feel about ourselves, and our confidence level just definitely does affect our sex, our intimacy level, and all of that.
Everything. And then in our self-worth, right? Then we start using food, or we start using our bodies to create more self-worth or desire, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are we craving at the end of the day? All we crave is love and happiness, right? And support, and to be. So it's, how can you create these relationships that really embody that, and knowing that, like, unconditional love, right?
Yeah, exactly. Unconditional love for yourself, and then to be able to give that to others as well.
Yep.
Because not only do we put that expectation on unnecessary expectations on ourselves, but we put it on others. It's like we kind of bleed that out onto others.
100%.
If I
100%.
can't have this, you can't either. So let's just make each other miserable.
Exactly. Right. Right. Yeah. So it's, I mean, we could go on and on and on, right? They're just, it is like, it's really hard. And know that, I think the biggest thing too is that there's no blame on anybody for the thoughts, the beliefs, the things that have been passed on from us. It is nobody's fault. All we can do is choose, see what it is that we're doing, and then every single day decide to choose a new action.
Yeah,
Or, right, choose whatever it is that we want, whatever it is that we really want to be feeling and to be doing. And that's the biggest thing that we can do, because it is the choice.
exactly. Yeah. So what final message would you have for our listeners, that if there's one thing that you could say to them? That
I think just to take the pressure off yourself when it comes to food, when it comes to life, career, finances. Allow yourself to be present in every single moment and just live life as fully as you possibly can, because the more stress and control we put is just us expecting something in the future, but all we really have is this moment, right? So how can we choose whatever feels good and feels aligned every single moment, and just know that whatever it is needs no justification, and as long as you're leading and doing what you love and saying the things that you love, then that's it. That's all that you need to be doing, right?
Mhm. Take the mask off and just let yourself be you.
Hmm. I love that.
Yeah. And I think it's so important too, that like if you have those negative stories that you're telling yourself, those negative beliefs, to find your truth. Like that's such a big one, is finding your truth. And it's like challenging that belief system that for so many years has said that you're not enough, or you should be this, or you should be that. But what is your truth?
Mhm. What do you want to be feeling? Perfect. Start there.
Exactly.
Yep. I love that.
Yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah, it really is. And it just is, I think, the pressure too, taking the pressure off whoever you think you're supposed to be, right? Doing the things that you enjoy, and know that that's enough, and that is perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
You are enough.
Hmm.
And again, back to that point that I said before, is just when we hide ourselves, someone else actually, we are missing out, but other people are too, because each individual has so much to offer to the world.
Yep. Yep. I love that. I love
So
that.
I'm just wondering if, for our listeners, if they were looking to find you at all, just to kind of sum it up, I guess, a little bit, what you do, what you offer, and how they can find you.
I love that. So, I am a holistic health and life coach. A lot of what we talked about today are things that I cover, right? It's just all about loving your body, getting rid of the diets, and taking your power back when it comes to the diet industry and food and weight and health. And places I hang out, Facebook is a huge one. My name is Gabi Leigh on Facebook, GabiLeigh. Instagram, same exact thing. And that's about it. Programs that I offer are group coaching as well as one-on-one private coaching. And then I have a soon coming out a 21-day healthy habit reset. So that'll be a lot of fun. But you can always follow me on Facebook and you'll get all the details and see what it is that's coming out.
Love it. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. This was so much fun and I absolutely loved it. And I'm super excited. And I hope that we were able to touch somebody and serve them or give them some kind of guidance in some way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Same for me as well. Like the message I would want to put out there is like, again, just embrace who you are. Doesn't matter what your backstory is, embrace your you-ness and to live in it and love it.
Yep. Every single day. Yep.
Yeah. In that place, there will be wholeness.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So thanks again so much. Oh, I was going to actually just say where I can be found on Facebook as well under Ellen Reimer, and on Instagram. That's where I kind of hang out. And I do have a website, Inspired Counseling. Need to add the coaching to that, I guess, don't I? I all of a sudden realized this morning I've had that tag and I just need to change that.
I love that.
Inspiredcounseling.ca is a website and you can get a hold of me through there as well.
I love that. And what are the programs that you offer, Ellen? Coaching and counseling?
Yes. Yeah, I do offer counseling, which actually the counseling part is in Canada. Coaching, I can do anywhere, as you are aware of, like too, for yourself. I think, isn't that you can coach anywhere?
Yep.
Yeah. So I also offer coaching anywhere. And I do have a couple of packages that I do offer to people. And I've recently have launched an e-course as well called Unlock Your Potential. And for people that are faith-based and want that God perspective to it, I'm just like within the next week, I'm going to be launching one on that one called Unlock Your God Confidence. So excited to be getting that one out. It's been a bit.
Yay. Cool. Well, I'm super excited. And I think that's amazing. That all sounds absolutely incredible. So I love it.
Yeah, and I liked what that last one that you said about the reset. What was that one called again?
21 days, healthy habit reset.
Love it. Love it. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that one.
Quick little, as we start to get out of our COVID quarantine, we're probably all feeling like our stretchy pants are the new norm. No.
Right. Well,
yeah, and that's okay. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Like our lives have completely shifted these last 360 days.
100%. Yeah, totally. And I think that people are looking too for that reset a little bit too, as we're going into summer weather.
Yep.
I know here where there's still ice on my pool, but the snow's about gone.
Yep.
But I know that people are starting to go, oh, well, it's starting to come into swimming weather and we're short weather, but what's happening here?
Exactly. And just, I 100% agree. And just wanting to be the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be. Right.
Absolutely. That's the important piece right there.
I love that.
Well, thank you so much, Gabi. It has been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, I look forward to chatting with you some more on this subject.
Me too. Thank you so much, Ellen. And we will definitely chat soon.